Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, hundreds of Gabonese peacekeepers are being withdrawn from Central African Republic following the latest sex abuse allegations. Gabon says that the most recent accusations are exceptionally serious. Also, dozens of civic groups in Uganda have been suspended, allegedly for not following the rules. But many human rights workers say that it's part of a pattern of repression. And South Africa's largest rhino breeder is pushing to be allowed to sell horns that illegally trims off his animals to keep poachers at bay. Owners of the park say that the money raised could help save more rhinos. But first, the UN is pulling 450 peacekeepers from Gabon out of its mission in Central African Republic because of a slew of sexual abuse allegations. Gabon said that it's investigating the claims of exploitation against some members of its contingent in the MINUSCA mission. Now, it was sent in 2014 to tackle chronic instability in Central African Republic, and it numbers more than 10,000 personnel. Besides those from Gabon, peacekeepers of other nationalities have also faced accusations of abuse in Central Africa over the years. Clément de Roma tells us more.
The peacekeeping mission here in CER dismisses nearly 450 Gabonese contingent soldiers on charges of sexual abuse. These peacekeepers are mainly based in Alindao, a town in the center east of the country. In 2018, the same contingent had already left the Central African Republic following a series of scandals. Since their arrival in 2014, MINUSCA soldiers have been regularly accused of abuse and sexual violence. In 2017, 630 Congolese peacekeepers were sent back to Brazzaville after internal investigations. Between 2014 and 2015, Burundian and Gabonese soldiers were suspected of abuse. An investigation opened in 2016 was unsuccessful. Internal sources spoke of a botched procedure with difficulties on the ground for investigators, suspicion of corruptions, as well as destroyed DNA samples. At the time, MINUSCA nevertheless promised zero tolerance and immediate sanctions for the soldiers responsible. Awareness programs had also been put in place. More than 15,000 soldiers, civilians and volunteers work within the mission here.
Clément de Roma there for us. Now, the European Union says it will send 200 million more vaccine doses to Africa and other low-income regions. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says that the pledge will be delivered by the middle of 2022. Now, it comes on top of 250 million jabs that have already been promised. Health chiefs on the continent say that they need around 800 million more doses to reach the threshold of being able to inoculate 60% of Africa's people. Last week, the number of doses so far procured stood at just 145 million. Now, there's frustration over richer countries' hoarding of vaccines and plans for booster shots, when currently only around 3.5% of Africans have been fully vaccinated. Von der Leyen said that the EU has demonstrated that it is looking beyond its borders when considering the fight back against the pandemic.
Team Europe is investing €1 billion to ramp up mRNA production capacity with Africa. We have already committed to share 250 million doses of vaccine. I can announce today that the Commission will add a new donation of another 200 million doses until the middle of next year. This is an investment in solidarity, and it is an investment also in global health.
Now, Zimbabwe's banned civil servants from heading into work unvaccinated. The government said that it's given staff more than enough time to make arrangements to get inoculated against COVID-19. Currently, about 12% of Zimbabweans have been fully vaccinated, and reportedly about 90% of those being admitted to hospital for coronavirus infections have not received a jab. The state is the country's largest employer. And Nigeria said that a Twitter ban brought in June is likely to be lifted in just a few days. The suspension of the micro-blogging site in the country has hit businesses hard and been slabbed internationally for being an incursion into freedom of speech. It was brought in after Twitter took down a post by President Muhammadu Buhari in which he threatened to punish Biafran separatists. The government has set certain conditions for reinstating the site and says that talks have made progress. Germany's backed France in condemning reports that Mali is on the brink of signing a deal to hire 1,000 mercenaries from Wagner, a Russian security firm. It's been active in Central African Republic, and some of its members have been accused of rights abuses. The Kremlin's denied that there are any official negotiation. Laurent Berstecker takes a look at how Moscow's capitalized on American disengagement in Africa and on growing wariness towards Europe and China to expand its political and military influence on the continent.
Addressing 40 African heads of state at the first ever Russian-African summit in October 2019, Vladimir Putin made no secret of his desire for closer cooperation with the African continent.
Russia is one of the top 10 largest suppliers of food to the African market. We're taking part in an initiative to ease the debt of African countries, and we're launching promising oil and gas projects on the continent.
The summit was the culmination of a Russian charm offensive which had been years in the making and which ramped up in 2018 when Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov visited 7 African countries. That same year, 6 African heads of state also traveled to Russia and signed several economic and security cooperation agreements. These included licenses for Russian companies to extract natural resources, such as bauxite, diamonds, and gas, as well as deals to build nuclear power plants in up to 14 African countries. Russian influence also grew through deals with private mercenary companies, such as the Wagner Group, a paramilitary organization believed to have strong ties to the Kremlin, even if Moscow denies its existence. Wagner has, for instance, been active in Central African Republic, helping fight off rebels and providing military training as well as security for senior government officials. This coincided with a Russian company with ties to the Wagner Group being granted exploratory rights to mine for diamonds and gold in the country. Africa also represents Russia's second largest weapons market and accounts for 18% of all Russian arms exports. But despite having bolstered its economic, diplomatic, and military presence in Africa over the past few years, Russia's influence on the continent still largely pales in comparison to the clout wielded by the US, Europe, and China.
That report by Laurent Berstecker. Now, human rights organisations in Uganda have been left in limbo after dozens of civic groups were suspended. Authorities say that it's because they didn't follow the rules, but many of those affected say that the shutdowns are part of a deliberate campaign against voices critical of the government. Our correspondents report.
It's the first time that Nicholas Opoyo has been back to his workplace since the government ordered the closure of his human rights organization on August 18.
This is the general sitting area where most of our lawyers would sit. There's about 6 people. What is now left are just desk monitors.
Altogether, 54 NGOs were ordered to suspend operations. Officially, they were told it was because of administrative problems, but some of those affected are skeptical.
There has been a consistent, continually targeting of civil society organizations, especially those that are involved in democracy and human rights work.
President Museveni has been in power for 35 years. He was re-elected in 2021 after a repressive campaign against opposition parties. Human Rights Watch warns that the authoritarian approach is feeding frustration.
Human rights is a prerequisite for stability for any nation. Suppressing people eventually leads to a point where the situation implodes. So it is in the interest of Uganda to respect human rights and basically allow people to speak and associate freely.
Yoweri Museveni denies the accusations. He accuses the NGOs of being foreign agents trying to destabilize the country. The leader says the organizations could reopen if certain conditions are met.
Let them come and be transparent, not bring money secretly. Let them be audited. Let us know which groups they are supporting and why, and they should not interfere in our internal politics because our politics is sovereign. We are sovereign people.
Contrary to the government's claims, many NGOs insist that their operations have always been above board.
South Africa's largest private rhino breeder says that he's spent years keeping the animals safe from poachers. The rhino's horns are routinely trimmed. The owner of the park's been pushing the government to let him sell legal stockpiles to help fund the conservation project. Nicola Chemin has more.
Should rhino horns be sold legally? The question has provoked a heated debate in South Africa. The largest private rhino farm in the country regularly removes the animal's horns. It's a painless process and the horns grow back. The breeders do this because of poachers.
For us, it's a safety measure, so it acts as a poaching deterrent. Because we have such a vast amount of rhino at the project, we try and dissuade any potential poaching to occur here by trimming the horns routinely. So that's less of an incentive for people to come here and to poach our rhino.
The farm belongs to John Hume, who has nearly 2,000 southern white rhino. He says breeding the animals is very costly, and he can only carry on his activity if the government allows him to sell the horns legally. In Asia, where they are prized, they cost around $65,000 a kilo on the black market.
If I had my government to help me, to assist me, to export my production of live rhino, to export rhino horn, or to start a processing plant here where we process rhino horn into jewelry or medicine, this project will thrive and get better and better with more and more rhinos.
But environmentalists fear illegally obtained horns would be laundered into the legal market. They also argue the focus of conservation should be on wild rhinos. Activists say rhinos can't produce enough horn on a regular basis to satisfy the growing international demand. In Asia, many mistakenly believe rhino horns have medicinal benefits.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.